Earlier this month, we attended the annual conference for the American Marketing Association St. Louis at Webster University. It was an amazingly well-run conference with some great speakers, and today I'm going to share some of the key takeaways from a presentation by Amanda Chamov, Director of North America and APAC, the Experience Studio, American Express Global Business Travel, as well as share some of my thoughts. Now, of all the presentations given at this conference, this was the one that utilized the most original research with studies supporting a lot of the conclusions that Amanda had to share. And so you can guess that I was paying rapt attention to everything that she had. And they have a ton of free research materials available from American Express regarding travel and event planning. And you can find them via the link in the show notes. So let me take a cue from Amanda's presentation and tell you what you're about to hear is going to be exciting, and it may change your mind about how you think about events, both as an attendee and as a person who plans and puts them on. These tips can scale to any kind of event, from a dinner party to a major multimedia spectacle at an enormous convention. I'm going to be your guide through what Amanda has to share, and you won't believe what's going to happen next. I'm Sean in St. Louis, and this is the Marketing Gateway. So it turns out the secret to event planning is, surprise, surprise, to spend a lot of time thinking about the experience that people who are attending your event might want to have. And you don't need any scientific research or special understanding to figure this part out. If it's a lunch meeting, you better serve lunch. If it's a birthday party, you better bring cake. And if it's an AMA St. Louis annual conference, you'd better realize that many people in the room are regulars who attend chapter events frequently, but that there's another group of people in the room who have never been to an AMA event and who are hoping to not just walk away with some great new perspective, but also some great new contacts. And to illustrate that, Amanda had all of us regulars stand up, hold our hands up high, and make believe that we were lighthouses for the other people in the room to see. She then instructed the first-timers to make eye contact with the lighthouse people, and then to encourage those people to locking eyes to meet up during the break and introduce each other. Now, this sounds rather silly, and it's a rather awkward icebreaker, but it had a purpose. One of the keys to putting on a great event is to create moments that people can remember and connect to through memory. And believe it or not, this diversion did get some people to make friends with one another later in the day. I actually heard a few conversations begin with, "So you're supposed to be my lighthouse, and I thought I'd introduce myself." So don't count it out as a technique that you can use when you're amidst an audience of seasoned pros and absolute newbies. Amanda's tips from that point forward really referenced a lot of research from in-depth interviews that they had done, including with a neuroscientist subject matter expert. One of the areas where the research turned up some opportunities was with reward strategies, because people love being given things, and it turns out to be a fantastic way to elevate their emotions. I know I've been to conferences where I've been handed a bag that's basically just a bunch of papers and maybe a cheap plastic water bottle or something. That's a memorability failure. Most of that stuff goes straight in the trash. But when you give out high-value items, it can really make a big impression. I went to one conference where they handed out nice hiking backpacks with a copy of one of the speaker's books inside. I can tell you so much more about that conference because little details like that made it so much more memorable. I went to another one where every attendee got an iPad back when those were still shiny and new. And I remember that conference so well, I can talk about specific speakers and conversations I had, even though I went about 15 years ago. But you don't always have to go big or go home. One time, I heard the Freakonomics author Stephen Dubner speak, and he remarked that research shows people will line up for free things regardless of the value. Maybe even, he said, for something as insignificant and maybe even a little patronizing like hand sanitizer. And sure enough, as we filtered out of the auditorium after his talk, there were tables of small bottles of hand sanitizer, compliments of Stephen Dubner, and we all lined up to get one. I even kept mine unopened for a while because there was such a neat story behind it. And I did wind up using it during COVID when my kids needed some hand sanitizer one day, but the fact that I know that tells you how memorable that little bottle was. Going back to Amanda's talk, she referenced the notion of social exchange theory, which is the source of the term cost-benefit analysis. And where it applies here is in the idea of personal identity alignment. If you want to get someone to attend an event of any sort, they have to not just feel it's valuable in terms of price or time commitment, but that it also fits their social identity. Most people would not attend an event that they feel represents values that are contrary to their own, no matter how good the gift bags are. But if you can make them feel that an event will fit their personal identity, you can build interest and buzz prior to the event and create excitement about what's happening. And buzz is important in building anticipation for another psychological concept Amanda referenced, which is the peak end rule, an idea proposed as an extension of the snapshot model created by Barbara Fredrickson and Daniel Kahneman. The basic idea behind the peak end rule is that people judge an experience based on its most intense point rather than an average of the entire event. I can relate this to professional sports, especially baseball. I worked at Busch Stadium here in St. Louis one summer in concessions, and I got to see a lot of games. And if you go to a St. Louis Cardinals game, I'd say at least 80 to 90% of the experience is pretty boring. But when that exciting moment does happen, a triple play, a break in a strikeout streak, a home run, or whatever, then the excitement swells, and that's what people actually remember. Not the hours of monotony in the stands, but the moments of excitement that break out in between. And participating in or hearing about one of those big moments gets sports fans excited to be there again to experience another one. That's why sports organizations often try to use highlight reels and stories of past rivalries to excite crowds and get them in the door. The drama and excitement of what could happen makes those moments all the more meaningful when they actually do happen. And so, Amanda said, an event really needs to focus on providing these big moments to bring out the emotional highs. Not only will this make the events more memorable and exciting, but they'll also make the attendees more willing to wait out the things they're less interested in and to anticipate the next big surprise, particularly if it's telegraphed that there will be one. Steve Jobs mastered this when he was the CEO and pitchman for Apple in the early 2000s with his one more thing additions to his presentations. And he was able to use this tool, first a surprise and then an expected and exciting component of his talks, to make a particular piece of news hit his press audiences as a stinger that they were absolutely going to talk about when they reported on the trade show or event. In fact, the buzz before an event would be, what is Steve Jobs going to surprise us with this time? Building anticipation and excitement for his talk. Amanda also zeroed in on how to build excitement during an event, and her tips focused on 4 main themes. First, create a connection between members of the audience, which was exactly the purpose of her lighthouse exercise. Second, shape the journey that the attendees will be on, ensuring that there will still be opportunities for peaks amidst the highs that you're hoping to provide, but also periods of engaging rest for emotions to calm down so that they can be brought back up again. Third, using the senses to create opportunities for personal and emotional connection, with smell being the oft-ignored sensory element that's easy to provide at scale. And then fourth, provide some sort of VIP treatment to each attendee in some way, balancing needs and expectations. Well, what about after the event? There are ways to ensure that you provide connections to help attendees relive memories and retain information. Amanda referred to the Ebbinghaus forgetting curve and pointed out that often people tend to check out after about 20 minutes when a speaker is on stage and only really retain about 30% of what they hear at an event within the first 24 hours. So you can provide them with reminders of key takeaways, pictures or videos that evoke big moments, recaps of what they learned, or other memorability enhancing tools to ensure that they come away from your event with an ability to recall much of what was provided for them. Social media is really useful for this, but so is following up with attendees to hear about their experiences and takeaways, and so is crafting a communication strategy to keep them engaged after the event. In Amanda's line of business and the American Express Global Business Travel, she said getting people together is often an opportunity to think about them as individuals and to try to cater to their personal needs as much as possible. When money's no object, really amazing experiences can be provided with some creativity and effort, but money often is an object. So what can you do in that case? Amanda boiled it down to 3 things. Number 1, remember how you make people feel is really, really important to what they're going to take away from the event. So try to make them feel positively about the experience as much as possible. Number 2, Science-based strategies are not optional, and the frameworks she suggested are the ones to start with. That includes the social exchange theory, the peak end rule, and the Ebbinghaus forgetting curve that she referenced in her talk. Number 3, anticipate the emotional peaks and make sure to reinforce them overtly through continued communication and reminders. Now, I have to say, this talk got me really excited about my next event. And even today, I'm reviewing my notes and thinking, what if I brought this same philosophy to my next research presentation or classroom talk? Every opportunity to talk to someone is an event in itself. So what if we could bring this philosophy to meetings or family dinners or even one-on-one conversations? You know what? The opportunities are endless. I'm Sean in St. Louis, and this has been the Marketing Gateway. We'll see you next time. This month, it's National Donate Life Month, and so I want to encourage you to consider registering to be an organ donor. Did you know that one organ donor can not only save up to 8 lives, but can also donate corneas that can help people with their vision and tissue that can be made into hundreds of incredibly beneficial medical products? Your gift of life can go really far in benefiting others, potentially 75 lives or more. And you might be surprised who can be a donor and what can be donated. Even people in their 70s, 80s, and 90s can be donors today. When you register to be a donor, all you're doing is saying, if I die, I want my organs and tissues to go to the people who need them. You can be confident that the doctors and nurses who are taking care of you will do everything they can to keep you alive, and it's up to them, not the people recovering the organs, to decide when you've reached a point where you cannot come back. Every now and then there's a sensational news story about a situation where the hospital got it wrong, but those cases are rare. And that's why there are so many precautions in place to ensure that donation is administered with safety, respect, transparency, and a high degree of ethical behavior. Donors are heroes and they're treated with dignity. And there's an important reason why you need to consider this. There are over 100,000 people on the National Transplant Registry right now who will die if they don't receive an organ. Many of them need a kidney transplant and have to go and do dialysis treatments daily just to stay alive. Dialysis is time-consuming and not a lot of fun, and those individuals have trouble leading healthy, happy, productive lives because they're really, really sick. 13 people die every day waiting for an organ transplant. So imagine there's a mom out there who needs a second chance to take care of her kids, or a new grandfather who wants to see his grandkids grow up, or a child who wants to have a chance at leading a full life, or a newlywed who hasn't had a chance to settle down and start a family yet. All of these sorts of people, and more just like them, are on the waiting list now, and they need your help. I personally know many of the hardworking professionals who get those donated gifts to the people in need, and let me tell you, I'm always amazed by their passion, their professionalism, and their dedication to caring for donors and their families. So please visit donatelife.net and click on Register to be a Donor. If you're willing to read up on the resources to learn more, feel free. And if you're not ready to register but still want to be a donor, please tell your family and friends so that if they have to make the decision for you, they will know your wishes. And you won't be alone. 90% of Americans support organ donation.